The strength of that bow is through the Red Bay area at this point, and it's pushing east, roughly 45 miles per hour. So if we put a squall track on that, notice it's near Red Bay right now. As we draw that and move it east, roughly within the next 10 to 15 minutes towards Piney Bend at 6 o'clock. We're at 5:55 right now. So Hodges about 6:09. Russellville, this would be moving into your backyard within the next 30 minutes or so as this pushes across northwestern Alabama and into the shoals. Now, again, I do want to point out the worst of it right now into western parts of Franklin County, but the latest radar returns now not looking so great for Tishomingo County, which would mean some stronger wind gusts out that way as well. So throughout the morning, make sure you have your First Alert weather app ready to go. We're going to be tracking these storms here as long as they're going through the Tennessee Valley. We do have a tornado watch, which is in effect until 1 o'clock this afternoon for areas including Florence, Tuscumbia, Russellville, Phil Campbell. This includes you as well. Littleville, Cherokee, as well as Waterloo at this point. Here's a look at radar. Again, you can see that line just now over the Alabama-Mississippi state line off into Franklin County. This other area just to the west, roughly about now 10 miles to the west as it pushes into Tishomingo County. So still several minutes away for those of you in Cherokee, in Russellville, and Florence. But those in Red Bay, you're likely hearing the gusty winds. And at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we could see an embedded tornado pop up in this. Yeah, there we go. There's a good sign of it right there, folks. Just to the west of Red Bay, as you see, the areas where the green and the yellows are, that's a sign of debris, which would mean that there's likely a tornado on the ground right now, moving north and east, 15, 20, even 30 miles per hour. And this is moving northeast, so it's going to split Belmont and Red Bay. That would be Highway 19, Alabama Highway 19, and then it spills over into Mississippi, just off into southeastern Tishomingo County. That's riding north and east. So there's a clear definition of what we call a potential tornado debris signature, and that's right now roughly 1 to 2 miles to the west of Red Bay. So if you're in Red Bay, you need to get to your safe space right now. If you're in northwestern Franklin County, you need to get there as well. I think Vina, you'll be okay as regarding the tornado threat here, but you do have severe wind gusts running through your area at this point, up to 60 miles per hour. So get away from windows and get to your shelter as well. That does include places like Hodges, where you still have a couple minutes to get ready to go. But if you're in Red Bay, you need to seek shelter immediately, as that right there is what we call a debris signature with that tornado likely on the ground. Let's see if we can see that via velocity at this point. Velocity right there, nothing that really stands out, but that's why we use several different tools when it comes to radar to help paint the picture and really give us knowledge of what's out there. That would be right where that debris signature was. You can see a little bit of these notches with the greens and the reds kind of interchanging there. And what that means is there's likely a tornado on the ground just to the west of Red Bay, while we're also dealing with strong wind gusts ahead of that as the storm pushes into Franklin County. So Red Bay, Vina, you need to be in your safe space right now. You see where the bright reds now even turning oranges. That's likely 60 to 65 miles per hour, and that is pushing off towards the east. Now, I know a lot of folks in north central Alabama. What about us? What's going on here? Well, here's a look at the timeline of arrival for places in north central Alabama. That would include Decatur, Athens, Huntsville, Madison, sometime after 8 o'clock. Now, what we are expecting is as this system pushes east, it should lose a little bit of intensity, especially for those of you on Sand Mountain, likely between 9 and 10 o'clock for those in eastern Madison County, extreme western parts of Marshall County, and then Sand Mountain a little closer to 10 o'clock. As far as those of you in the shoals, it's already starting to move through, and we're going to see that likely pick up for places from Florence down to Russellville along Highway 43 within the next 30 to 45 minutes. So if that includes you, if you're trying to go to work, you might want to give yourself a little extra time, maybe wait a little bit. We have our first school delay. Colbert County is opening at 10 a.m. Just getting that in my ear from our producer. So again, Colbert County school delay. They will be opening up at 10 a.m. As we take First Alert Live Doppler on air right now, you can see that we're seeing that line of storms along the Alabama-Mississippi state line. First alert live Doppler, guys, if we can pop that up. There you go. Right along the Alabama-Tennessee state line, or Alabama-Mississippi state line, excuse me. You see where there's that break? That's where we always look for the potential of a tornado, as there's some turbulence in the atmosphere with what we call wind shear, that spin, and what that does is create that potential for a tornado. And right now, that's just to the west of Red Bay. We saw that when it came to debris signature. Now, that is likely on the ground to the west of Red Bay, while that secondary line is in northeastern Mississippi and middle Tennessee. That would be pushing towards Waterloo and Cherokee relatively soon. And it's moving roughly 45 miles per hour this morning. And it's picking up its speed in some spots. And that's why we're seeing that swirling when it comes to the wind, as well as that signature. There is now a tornado warning out for northwestern parts of Franklin County. You can see that there on your screen. That does include the Red Bay area. Vina, you're included in that as well. And if we take up First Alert 1, you can see right where that signature is. North and west of Red Bay. This is moving to the north and east. Let me go check out from what the National Weather Service is saying regarding the tornado. There is definitely a debris signature there. Tornado producing, tornado storm was located near Red Bay, moving east at 50 miles per hour at this point. So again, that is what we're watching here, right to the north and west of Red Bay. I'm going to highlight that if we're up on air. Yep. So I'm going to circle that so you can see right where I'm talking about. That green, the yellow, that's what we call a debris signature, a tornadic debris signature. National Weather Service saying it could weaken slightly as it enters Franklin County, but Red Bay is right on the line. You need to get into your shelter right now. Let's zoom in even closer to that just so you can see the street level view here if you are in the Red Bay area. This is just over the state line. So still about a half a mile into Mississippi. Red Bay, northwest of you, probably about a mile from the downtown area, 1 mile to 2 miles right there. So that's what you're going to have to worry about. This is moving northwest at 50 miles per hour, so let's put a track on that. The National Weather Service just issued that tornado warning a few minutes ago. That, again, includes northwestern Alabama, northwestern parts of Franklin County and Alabama. That's where we do have this tornado watch at the moment. And again, there is a school delay. Colbert County, 10 o'clock is when they'll be opening. Damaging tornado confirmed on radar from the National Weather Service, and there's the confirmation right there. You see where the green and the yellow is. That is a confirmed tornado on the ground, and if we put a track on this, it's moving north-north or east-northeast, roughly 50 miles per hour. So let's push this east throughout the next 25 to 20 minutes. This will impact places like Rock Creek, Duncan Creek Church around 6:30, Posey School around 6:20. So if this includes you, you do need to get to shelter immediately, especially if you're in northwestern Franklin County. If you have any friends who live in northwestern Franklin County, north of Highway 24, north of Red Bay, that is where the most immediate danger is at this point in time. And it's pushing east relatively fast as it races into northwestern Alabama. Let's take another look at satellite and radar here, or at least just radar, so you can see this bend in the storm system, which stretches all the way to the Gulf Coast. There's tornado warnings off towards Columbus, and ahead of all of this, we have some light showers in the northwestern parts of Alabama towards Hartselle, even Huntsville, Athens, Madison, and Decatur likely dealing with some light showers at this point. No lightning is detected with this, so you're probably not going to hear thunder, and that's what's likely to confuse you out there this morning. As you're not hearing the thunder, it's not that strong of a storm, but what you're going to hear is the roar of the wind. Ahead of this line of storms, we've got wind gusts of 25 to 30 miles per hour, which may have already woken you up this morning. And with this line of storms, you can expect gusts of 45 to 50, possibly 60 to 65 miles per hour as it races east. Again, 45 miles per hour for that front line, the back line lagging a little bit. So let's put a mark on that to see how fast it would move into areas of eastern parts of Franklin County and then off into Lawrence County. So if you're in the Phil Campbell area, you can get ready for strong winds within the next 20 minutes. Currently 6:04 at the moment. And as this pushes east, that'll move into places like Russellville, Phil Campbell, Hatton, Hodges shortly as well. So if you're in those areas including Hodges and Russellville, you might want to start thinking about your shelter at this point, or at least away from windows. If you're in a trailer park or if you're in a trailer home, you need to get out of there and find your sheltered area as quickly as possible. You've got about 15 to 20 minutes for places like Phil Campbell and Russellville. I know Wanda and Phil Campbell, she always messages me, you need to get to your safe space right now, Wanda. 622 in Russellville and Hodges, this is just minutes away from you for this severe wind gusts. As far as the debris signature, that is still in northwestern Franklin County and southeastern Tishomingo County. And there is a very strong definition right there of a tornado debris signature on the ground, likely north and west of Red Bay. So this is moving north and east 50 miles per hour. So northwestern parts of Franklin County, you do need to get to shelter immediately. Tornado debris signature right there at the Alabama-Mississippi state line north of Red Bay. So you need, again, to find your safe space. Even in northeastern parts of Franklin County, I would start to think about where you need to be. This is why we put the first alert out last Friday. We started talking about this storm system coming through as early as last week. We were the first to warn you about it. And now, the day of, it is really living up to what we had thought it was. It did have a brief period of time where it looked like it could be slightly weaker, but it ran into what we call gravity waves. And that helps to intensify storm systems like this. And that's what we're seeing at this point in time. First Alert Live Doppler showing these showers in north central parts of Alabama. But the main threat, if you're in Huntsville, Decatur, Madison, still a couple hours away. But if you're in the Shoals, northwestern Alabama, that threat is imminent right now. And that really does include most of northwestern Alabama. Russellville, you are on the edge of that severe thunderstorm warning. You are not in the tornado warning, but you are in an area that needs to get ready to take shelter relatively soon. As you can see, that line of storms coming through northwestern Alabama, Lauderdale County, Colbert County, severe thunderstorm warning to the west of Florence. So Florence, that does not include you, but you are going to be dealing with storms within the next 20 to 35 minutes here, so you need to start thinking about what you're going to do between now and then. But again, tornado debris signature right now, northwestern Franklin County. That's out towards the Red Bay area. This tornado warning in effect for another 8 minutes, but I wouldn't be surprised if that is extended. As you can see, still quite defined, a tornado debris signature just northwest of Red Bay, Alabama. So if you're in Red Bay, if you have friends north of Red Bay, you need to make sure that they are into their shelters immediately if they haven't done so already. And even any area north of Highway 24 there, Alabama Highway 24, if you get to the north of that, you are in the path of this potential debris as well as that tornado. So that's just towards Pogo, Gwynn Crossroads, south and west of Rock Creek, and right along Alabama Highway 247. So that means a tornado is on the ground. Tornado confirmed on the ground. So you need to get to your safe space immediately and head out to your shelter. For those in eastern Franklin County, you still have a couple of minutes, but as we take a look at velocity here, let's get that up for you guys to see. You see the oranges and the bright pinks, that's signs of some strong wind gusts ahead of this line right there circled on your screen. It's roughly 60 to 65 miles per hour. So you need to get ready for that in Russellville, Littleville, even the Shoals, Muscle Shoals, Leeton. This is moving roughly 45 miles per hour. If we put the track on that at 45 miles per hour, this will be off towards the Crooked Oak area around 615, Russellville 620, Littleville 625, and Muscle Shoals 631. For those of you just tuning in, Colbert County is a school delay this morning. 10 a.m. is when school will start for that. So keep checking in on our First Alert weather app, our news app as well for more closings. And if you have to take off right now, make sure you have that First Alert weather app because that's a great place that you can stream us live throughout the rest of the morning. We'll be here covering these storms through the entirety of northwestern Alabama off towards I-65. As long as they stay severe, we're going to stay here with you to make sure you are staying up to date with the very latest. So again, Crooked Oak, Russellville, and Littleville, severe thunderstorm wind gusts likely to be near you within the next 10 to 15 minutes. As far as the tornado on the ground north of Red Bay, what we're seeing there is it's very strong still. That's a very strong tornado debris signature where you see the greens, where you see the yellows. That's a sign of air coming upward, likely because of rotation at the ground, debris getting thrown up into the atmosphere. And this is just north of Red Bay, 3 miles. So Red Bay, we really missed out on the worst of it, which is good news. You still have the heavier rainfall. You're likely hearing that on your roof at this point in time. And again, the tornado warning is in effect for another 5 minutes. They've just extended the severe thunderstorm warning to include Florence, Russellville, Hatton. This does include Tuscumbia. So all of the Quad Cities, you are now in this severe thunderstorm warning, which is in effect. Let me grab that here from the National Weather Service. That new warning in effect until 7. And we'll take a look at that here in just a second. But again, Red Bay, that's where the tornado is on the ground. North of Red Bay, that is where the signature is. So you need to watch out for that. Also, this line of storms producing 60 to 65 mile per hour wind gusts. As we zoom out, let's put a track on this. It's moving north and east, roughly 45 miles per hour. So this line, Hackleburg, that'll be about 615. Russellville, again, 620. Phil Campbell, 624. Leeton around 636. This morning is when you can expect the worst of those severe wind gusts to make their way near you. And then as we put a line on that storm system in northeastern Mississippi, we'll get to that in a second, you'll see that that'll move into the shoals off towards the Florence as well as Tuscumbia and Sheffield area. That'll be in effect, that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect until 7 o'clock. And this tornado watch is in effect until 1 o'clock this afternoon. There's a look at that line of storms we were talking about. Now just crossing over the Mississippi-Alabama state line. So Cherokee, this is likely several miles away from you. Waterloo as well. Florence, you still have time, but if we put a track on this system, let's take a look at what the timeline is on this for you. If we can get our box to pop up here. Give me a second here. There we go. As this progresses east, it's still going to hold on to the strong winds. So Florence along Highway 43 all the way to Russellville underneath that severe thunderstorm warning. As far as the track on this, it's just now moving into northwestern Alabama. This secondary line here, if we can draw it out, if the map wants to work for me, there we go. As this progresses north and east, let's take it through the shoals and the Quad Cities area. So Minot about 615, Cherokee 621. That's about 10 minutes away from now. Florence, 645. Leeton, this wave will be about 654. So you'll have two different waves here, and that would likely be where there could be potentially a tornado on the ground right between the line breaks here. As I was discussing a little bit ago, you see where the radar breaks a little bit, and then there's a secondary line. That's where we get turbulence in the atmosphere, creating spin, and that's where we've had that confirmed tornado. Again, north of Highway 24 in northwestern Franklin County. This is about to cross the Colbert-Franklin County line and progress north and east. So if you're in the southern parts of the shoals, that would include Tuscumbia, Sheffield, and Muscle Shoals. At this point, the track of that rotation is moving directly towards you. Still about a half an hour out. A lot can change. It has weakened slightly, but still defined there when it comes to what we call the correlation coefficient. You see the bright green, that is a sign of debris. You can also see it upstream ahead of that line of storms. Part of that, I believe, is likely because of the radar beam from Columbus, Mississippi, kind of deflecting that a little bit, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of that debris in northwestern parts of Alabama and off towards northwestern Lauderdale County. But the worst of it right now, north and west of Red Bay. Let's take another zoom in on that. Just crossing over the Colbert-Franklin County line, just west of Highway 247. So if you know anybody in that area ahead of this, you need to get them to shelter immediately. As we zoom in a little farther towards the east, see if we can get some roads here. Rock Creek, this is just towards your east. This is moving northeast quickly, too. It's already moved from Mississippi. As we get rid of this so you can see the detection so closely right there. There you go. Right now, just south and almost direct south of Minot. And this is moving north and east. So let's put a track on that. 50 miles per hour. That's what the National Weather Service has estimated with this as it moves to the north and east. So Rock Creek, within the next 5 minutes, this will likely be near you. So if you know anybody in Rock Creek, if you're in Rock Creek, you need to find your shelter right now. Lime Rock, you're about 10 minutes out, maybe about 15 minutes out. And then Muscle Shoals around 6:40. So this is on the very edge of this track here, but Muscle Shoals, Florence, this has the potential to move through you. Eric Birkin this morning. Eric, what you got?
Good morning, Brandon. Good morning, everyone. We do have a confirmed tornado on the ground right now. A new tornado warning has been issued by the National Weather Service in Huntsville. This will include southwestern Colbert County and northwestern Franklin County. At 6:15, a tornado-producing storm was located 8 miles east of Tishmingo State Park, and this is moving northeast at 30 miles per hour.
30 miles per hour now.
And it's northeasterly as opposed to the 50 miles per hour easterly of that initial tornado warning. Just to reiterate, there's a confirmed tornado on the ground right now, and it is moving east, northeast at 30 miles per hour. So 8 miles east of Tishmingo State Park, there is a new tornado warning, and we're starting to see some more cleaner returns here as far as velocity goes here in Franklin and Colbert County, but some straight line wind damage likely. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I'm hearing new school closings out there, if we can take those up on full screen. Delays, excuse me. Our producer talking to us. Here we go. So Colbert County opening at 10 a.m., Franklin County 10 a.m., same with Lawrence County. So those are the latest school delays coming in here at WAFF. You can get the full list throughout the morning, WAFF.com, as well as that 48 News app. And scrolling at the bottom. And scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you'll be able to see that as well. More just in you said Muscle Shoals City? Correct. Okay, so Muscle Shoals City also opening at 10 a.m. So those are 4 different schools that are opening with a delayed start this morning. Again, Colbert County, Franklin County, Lawrence County, as well as Muscle Shoals City opening up at 10 a.m. As we take First Alert 1 live here, you can see the latest track, 30 miles per hour now, as Eric just mentioned, to the east-northeast. So it's slowed down a little bit, but it's still pretty much the same path as we were showing you. So Rock Creek, 625. Currently 617 right now. So if you're in Rock Creek, now is the time you need to get to your storm shelter. If you're in Florence, Muscle Shoals, even Littleville, you need to start thinking within the next 15 to 20 minutes, you need to start to get where you need to be. Have an action plan. This is why we put the first alert out a week ago to warn you of this potential. And that's what we're seeing so far this morning. There's been this confirmed tornado on the ground within this line of storms for the last half an hour or so. It's 6:17. We started wall-to-wall coverage about 5:45 this morning as that storm was in northeastern Mississippi. Now pretty much in southwestern Colbert County, just west of Rock Creek, probably 2 or 3 miles at this point, riding Alabama Highway 247. So if you're familiar with southwestern parts of Colbert County, just southwest of Rock Creek, you'll know where this is at. This is moving north and east off towards Muscle Shoals, the Quad Cities. This does include you with that track. Now, you are not in the warning, and that warning is 6:30, Eric?
Goes through 6:45.
6:45. Okay, so the edge of that warning just towards the west of Littleville and Highway 43. So that includes most of central Colbert County, a northwestern portion of Franklin County, but we also have a severe thunderstorm warning, which is in effect for nearly all of northwestern Alabama, and that is in effect until 7 o'clock. As we take that full here, you can see the tornado warning and the severe thunderstorm warning overlaid on top of each other there. And that warning, again, is in effect until 7 o'clock this morning for the severe thunderstorm warning, which includes all of pretty much Lauderdale, Colbert, and Franklin counties, and a sliver of western Lawrence County. That's for severe thunderstorm wind gusts up to 60, 65 miles per hour. The first threat just about to move into Russellville right now. The second threat not as organized, and that's good news for northwestern Alabama. Notice how the line was a lot skinnier in northeastern parts of Mississippi, and as it's pushed into northwestern Alabama, it started to lengthen a little bit, spread out. The wider it gets, the less likely it'll produce some stronger wind gusts. It's normally a time that it starts to weaken a little bit. But again, if you look at the line to the south, it hasn't really changed much since northeastern Mississippi as it's progressed in the north central parts of Franklin County. Eric, what you got?
Yeah, Brandon, the National Weather Service saying they're seeing the trend of these signatures on radar, and they're going to continue to issue tornado warnings as long as they see this signature. They saw it this morning in Mississippi, and they will continue to be issuing tornado warnings as long as this signature of rotation is there. So this is likely not the last tornado warning we're going to see as we head through the morning hours. Just to reiterate, there's a confirmed tornado on the ground right now for this tornado warning in Colbert and Franklin County. This tornado warning will go until 6:45 a.m. If you are in that red polygon, you need to go to your safe spot now. It is still dark outside. There is very heavy rain falling with this storm, so it is very hard to see a tornado. It'll be on top of you before you know it. It is moving northeasterly around 30 miles per hour. Brandon has a new map on that, and he'll walk you through this right now.
Yeah, as far as the severe wind gusts, a part of this severe thunderstorm warning, I just put a new track on that. It's roughly 45 miles per hour as it's moving towards the east. So Lime Rock, this is just about towards you. Russellville, you're expecting some stronger wind gusts and heavy rain within the next 5 to 10 minutes here. It's 6:20, so 6:25, 6:26, it'll be towards Russellville. That Highway 43 corridor likely to get hit with some strong winds as well as some very heavy rainfall. We're talking, as Eric just reminded you, there's heavy rain in that, so you're not likely to see a tornado if there is one coming through your area. So you need to get to your safe space, especially in central and south central parts of Colbert County, as that is a confirmed tornado on the ground. Another area that we're watching for is those strong wind gusts right now, again, producing up to 50, 60 mile per hour winds off towards Russellville, moving towards Littleville. This is south and west of Florence, but Florence, we're going to have to keep an eye on this area. See where the breaks are between these lines. Line breaks with an event like this, when we get a QLCS system come through, the line breaks represent where we have some wind shear, some turning in the atmosphere, and that is right where we have seen that tornado debris signature. And as we take another look at that, the good news here is I can tell you it's weakened a little bit as we zoom in slightly. That tornado debris signature, which was well defined as it moved across the Alabama-Mississippi state line, not nearly as strong, but you still see the returns there where there's the discoloration. Very dark reds around it, some oranges and yellows mixing through, so that's still a signature of debris. And ahead of that, I would probably assume that's where those stronger winds are kicking up, possibly branches, maybe even leaves. It is fall, so we've got a lot of leaves on the ground. The radar sees all of those images, and it really projects that on the map here. Now, you see it's a little tighter along Highway 247 with the latest scan. And if you are along Highway 247, this is west of Littleville. Estimate 15 to 20 miles to the west, riding 247 toward the north and east. This would take it just to the south of Muscle Shoals. So if you are in the Muscle Shoals area, north and west of Littleville, you need to start thinking about what you're going to do within the next 10 to 15 minutes. Where is your storm shelter? If you don't have one, if you have a basement, that's probably the best bet. If not, bathroom, anywhere away from windows, closets as well, a great place to ride this out. As we zoom out, I just want to put, it was a 30 mile per hour track, correct, Eric?
Yeah, off to the north and east, Brandon. The signature weakening just a touch there. Over on First Alert 2, we've got some radar estimated wind speeds over 75 miles per hour. And you can see that band of strong winds all the way from Cherokee and Highway 72 to the Littleville area, also out to Russellville. Now, these tracking northeasterly mean you in the shoals. This will be on you within a matter of probably 10 minutes or so, moving fast.
Yeah. Eric, keep in mind these winds are going to be aloft. A lot of these winds are about 5,000 feet off the ground because there's an incredible, what we call low-level jet out there. So I would say surface winds are probably on the order of 45 to 55 with an occasional 60 mile per hour wind gust. So again, as the radar looks out across the area, the beam gets higher and higher. And this is definitely the most enhanced area of wind here in central Colbert County. And even if you're not in that polygon, so to speak, you need to be seeking shelter, at least getting away from your windows And one of the things that we're dealing with here is Brandon was showing you the debris signature earlier. There's a lot of leaves out there. So we're going to have a lot of potential debris that's going to be picked up by the Doppler radar.
Yeah, and Brad, they just canceled the tornado warning, as you can see there on screen, but the severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 7 o'clock, so that's another 35 minutes there. Hearing words of more schools starting with a delay. Margot, Trent, what you got?
That's right. We're getting word of Colbert, Franklin, Lawrence County operating on a 2-hour delay at this point. Muscle Shoals just making the call as well. Russellville City Schools, Tuscumbia, and then just hearing of Sheffield City Schools from our news partners over at the Times Daily that they're operating on a 2-hour delay. I can't point out the obvious enough that this is happening at the worst time. This is the morning commute. A lot of kids were probably getting ready to go to their school bus stops, and this is happening right at this time with this severe weather. Right. So all those schools making the call at this point for operating on a 2-hour delay, opening up at 10 a.m.
All right, one more time. Colbert, Franklin, Lawrence County, Muscle Shoals, Russellville, and Tuscumbia, and you mentioned Sheffield as well.
Yeah.
Obviously a difficult situation for parents if they have to find
Adjust,
daycare
right.
at this time. But in this case, in this scenario, we want to make sure that everyone is safe. So obviously getting that information out to you. And the school officials have to adjust as they get the latest information from weather experts like our team here at Channel 48.
And you've been mentioning, Brandon, that this thing is weakening and then strengthening. So it's just up in the air at this point. But Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis in tracking all of this for you right now.
Yeah, let's go over to First Alert 3 here. And, of course, Brandon's a little taller than I am, so that's the adjustment here in our camera. One of the things I want to point out, we talked about how windy it is, even well ahead of this line of showers and storms. We're looking at the true velocity here from the NEXRAD Doppler radar. And I want to start down here to the south. And what you'll see here is these ripples here in the velocity data. Looks like a washboard. That's that intense wind that's coming right across this line, and that's what's causing, when it hits these higher areas of heavy rainfall, it's pushing that high wind to the ground. And as we get farther to the north, we're starting to see more of a separation. And that's why they probably have canceled this tornado warning. But we're going to stay in continuous coverage throughout this severe thunderstorm warning, because we know in cases like this, you can get these brief spin-ups, and that's what we're trying to catch here that may continue even though the warning has expired. The worst of that circulation here and the strongest wind is right in Cherokee now, the Cherokee and Barton area. As we zoom in a little bit closer, you can see just a little bit of a hint of green here. The wind's coming back to the radar. And even though it's just a light shading of green, this is where we had the tornado warning issued for. This is some fairly high wind that it's fighting to get back there. So the wind's probably stronger moving back towards the radar there than it's being reflected on the NEXRAD Doppler radar. And you see all this bright area of yellow extending up towards Tuscumbia, Muscle Shoals, and the Underwood, Petersville area. Those are just high winds. They're coming straight across these thunderstorms out here. And I mentioned thunderstorms. There's not a lot of lightning out there. And overall, this line of thunderstorms with potential for embedded tornadoes and strong gusty winds is going to continue to track to the east. But there is some good news here, is that we are starting to see this separation. It's becoming more broad where we have this line break. There's several miles now between the initial line near Littleville, Russellville, and Phil Campbell, then the secondary line out there towards Cherokee. I believe we've got the First Alert Storm Tracker rolling. Where were they again? They're out here in Florence right now, so they're starting to get that heavy rain just on the west side of Florence and continue. You're probably going to see just a lot of, signs kind of flip-flopping in the wind here. The winds are probably picking up close to 30 or 35 miles per hour there in the city of Florence, and that also includes areas back towards Littleville and Russellville. The wind's picking up, but if you're in Russellville and Littleville watching us right now we're seeing a lot of wind picking up some leaves, and I think that's what we're seeing there on that dual pulse signature. Let's go to Brandon for the latest on that.
Yeah, as you were just talking about, Brad, I've got it circled on the screen right now as I toss that behind me on the screen. You can see this area is circled. Brad was talking about Littleville, Russellville. That's likely where the strongest winds are at this point, and that's likely leaves or branches of some sort being picked up by those 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. This is the front of that line. The second part of that, where we were seeing that tornado signature right there to the north and west, it has really weakened, as Brad mentioned, which is good news at this point, as that line has sort of spread away from that secondary line. But wind right now, the primary concern. We're tornado free at the moment as that warning has been canceled. The National Weather Service said that these signatures have been cyclic. So that means that they've come and gone throughout the morning as they raced through central and northern Mississippi. So what we'll have to watch for is potential redevelopment as this progresses towards the east. Now, I think that's just a little bit of noise to the west of Muscle Shoals there. But what I'll be watching for is as this system continues east towards Florence, Muscle Shoals, some of the most populated areas we have, as Margot mentioned it, at the worst time possible. Kids at the bus stop this morning. Thankfully, schools have taken note and have delayed most schools till about 10 a.m. for those delays. But people are still heading out to work. So if you travel Highway 43, Highway 72 through Colbert County, even Highway 72 through Lauderdale County, you're likely to deal with some gusty winds, heavy rainfall, and even the possibility, we've already seen it, of a spin-up tornado later on throughout the morning. And we're going to monitor that. Another reminder that we are under a tornado watch, which means that conditions are pretty much strong enough to produce those tornadoes. We've already seen that straight through the north of Red Bay, off into Colbert County. It has now weakened as it's ridden along Highway 247. But I have put this storm track out there so you can see when some of the strongest winds come through your area. That means Phil Campbell. So Wanda, you need to get ready to take shelter within the next minute. You're in Phil Campbell right now, 630, Leeton 638, Hatton 648, and North Cortland right around 653. The arrival of some of the strongest winds we've seen, roughly around the 50 to 60 mile per hour range. You noticed on debris signature there that it was between Russellville and Littleville that we were seeing some debris, likely leaves, but that's still something you'll have to watch out for. But again, that track, as it races east, roughly 45 miles per hour. So Phil Campbell all the way to Leeton, within the next 10 to 15 minutes, you can expect the strongest of the winds to come through, some of the heaviest rain, and that's right along that highway, Highway 43 right now. And just to the south of the shoals where that line break is at this point, we aren't seeing that rotation or that debris signature that we were talking about, but still that chance that it has cycled throughout the morning. And if that continues, we could see that redevelop right to the west of Tuscumbia. So if you're in the shoals, you need to get into your shelter right now. Even though there's no tornado warning, this has produced a tornado. It has the history of tornadoes all the way towards western Mississippi, and this is pushing towards the shoals. So Florence, Tuscumbia, Sheffield, and Muscle Shoals. This is right towards you, still several minutes away from what would be the worst of it if it does develop, but you need to get to that safe space now. Thankfully, schools, as you've heard, and you're seeing them scroll there on the bottom of your screen, as well as on our website, WAFF.com, and the 48 News app. That's where you can find all those school delays till about 10 a.m. for most schools this morning. Severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect for about 30 minutes. What you got, Brad?
Yeah, that circulation continues to pop up in the Cherokee area. So I think the worst area, as we go over to First Alert 3, we'll show you this. It shows up pretty much plain as day here. Again, this is back towards Cherokee. And as we switch over to our First Alert 3 here, we're going to show you that's where that circulation is. And the farther you go down to the south, it looks like we're seeing more just gusty winds here moving into the Muscle Shoals, Littleville, Russellville area. But certainly very, very closely watching this. I would be seeking shelter there in Cherokee and just to the north of Cherokee. We have strong circulation here, and this circulation has been well established all the way back into Mississippi, where we did have some damage. And it's going to be this area that likely produced the wind damage in the Red Bay area not too long ago. Had some trees reported down. So as far as reports of damage, just trees down so far, but it's early. You can't see anything out there right now. And the other thing, besides the heavy rain, you're not going to be able to see this tornado if it's in fact still there and on the ground, because there's no lightning out there to illuminate a funnel that you would normally see. That, and it's on the back side. So as we go through this, I want to show you, I know a lot of people in the Huntsville metro area are probably wondering, when's it going to be in my area? We get that question a lot. I'm going to switch this over. And what we're going to do here is kind of tell you what's going on with this storm and why I think most of the impact here as far as the potential for tornadoes is going to lie across extreme northwest Alabama. And this area here from Cherokee is more likely to threaten the Underwood-Petersville area and then up towards Loretto, Tennessee. So this is clearly breaking off of this line. And at some point, I think that circulation is going to weaken, but it may not be until this is way up into Tennessee, about 40 miles from now. Now, we got a big split here as you go down to the south. And this is becoming more uniform. There's no big breaks in this line as you go farther to the south. There's plenty of wind here, and this is slowly tracking to the east, but it's also expanding. It's getting wider as it moves farther to the east, and that is good news because that means when you get that narrow band here, then you're more likely to get these bowing segments within that line. So here's what you need to know out in the shoals. We've got strong gusty winds moving through Underwood, Petersville, Florence, Muscle Shoals, Sheffield, Tuscumbia right now, down to Littleville and Russellville. The threat for the tornado is most likely back here towards Cherokee, and that is going to continue to slide east-northeast and probably going to stay just to the northwest of Florence. Now, that's not to say you may not have any tree damage or things like that, because that's a possibility within this line as we've got wind gusts easily 40 miles per hour within this heavy rain, and that's on its way towards Town Creek, Rogersville, Anderson, and Lexington. And you're not under a severe thunderstorm warning right now, but you're under that tornado watch. And it's a real quick drop-off. I think it's going to be, is Limestone County under this watch, or is it just to the west?
No, it's just Lawrence, Lauderdale, Colbert, and Franklin at this point.
So strictly out there in the shoals for this watch, and it goes until noon, but this isn't going to last all the way through noon. I think what's happened is they have saw what the Weather Service saw what was going on with this storm near Tupelo and decided they needed to include the shoals in a watch that was issued earlier to the south. So that is why the watch time expires at noon. It will the threat is going to be over here in the shoals, I would say at least by 8:30, maybe sooner than that, because this is quickly going to be moving out as we go over the next hour or so. So, Brandon, got any latest information for the National Weather Service? Eric, Brandon, if you guys have anything, just toss it out there.
They're just talking about the same thing, circulation near Cherokee, as you were talking about. That's actually farther west from or the central of that rotation was a little bit earlier. As that line near Cherokee is that second line that you were talking about, Brad, as it has split a little bit. You see that in the monitor behind me?
It's just to the north of Cherokee now. So I think if you have been seeking shelter in Cherokee, you can get out of your shelter in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, and this is going to push to the north of Florence as we run through that. The timeline of arrival for the winds or even this potential spin-up, here's a look at that. Right around 7 o'clock for St. Joseph. That's in Middle Tennessee. As far as Petersville, 6:53, just north of the Florence area. And velocity, as Brad was showing you, still showing a little bit of a circulation to the north of Cherokee, north of Highway 2 and Highway 72 there. If we put this distance-wise from Florence and the Quad Cities area, that's about 15 miles to the west, and this is pushing north and east. The system has been roughly about 30 miles per hour. So if we were to put a track on this, just to give you a thought on where this would be heading, that's Rhodesville, Petersville, as well as St. Florian, right around 7-11. So there's a look at the timeline there as far as this area of rotation, which is just north of Cherokee, roughly 3 miles or so, now 3 to 4 miles northeast of Cherokee, pushing to the north and east. As we take a look at that debris section we were showing you earlier, not as strong as what it looked like towards Red Bay, but still some areas popping up. I wouldn't be surprised if those are just leaves or even some branches, but nothing that really screams tornado on the ground at this point. There could be some circulations, and then over towards Leeton, we're seeing some signatures there, which is likely just leaves. This is where those strongest winds are on that secondary line just to the east of 43. We were talking about that as it rolled into Littleville a little bit ago and Russellville. Now it's in Leeton, moving off towards Highway 72, and this will be progressing towards the east towards Hatton and Town Creek, likely within the next 10 to 15 minutes. We've got updates on more schools coming in with those closings. I think I just saw an email with Russellville making a decision on that. Margot, Trent, what do you got?
Yeah, and I want to make the distinction between opening at 10 a.m. versus a 2-hour delay.
Right.
So we have Lauderdale County schools opening at 10 a.m. Colbert County Schools, Franklin County, Northwest Shoals Community College, we're getting word 10 a.m. as well. So the distinction of the 2-hour delay is who's falling under that category?
We have Muscle Shoals, Lawrence County, Tuscumbia City Schools, Russellville City Schools, Sheffield City Schools, and Florence City Schools. That is a 2-hour delay. So obviously, based on your normal start time, just push it back 2 hours. But the others, as you mentioned, were 10 o'clock. And I'm sure contact the school, they'll fill you in, because it's a lot of different schools.
Exactly.
But it's about the basic same delay as they're looking at the same information as we are.
Right. And then we're getting folks asking us about UNA. We haven't heard from UNA officials just yet, so stay tuned for that. What we have heard is power outages in the Cherokee area. So that's the information that we have at this point. Of course, we'll keep you updated. Scrolling at the bottom of your screen is the latest information that we're getting in. We have crews that are typing as fast as they can to update that list at the bottom of the screen. So we'll send it back to you guys in the Weather Center.
Yeah, we're watching this line of storms. First Alert Live Doppler, as we've got this on a 45-minute loop. You can see the circulation there when it comes to that storm system, that line of storms progressing north and eastward, roughly about 45 miles per hour. But as we put a broader picture on this, you can see where that circulation was much closer as it crossed the Alabama-Mississippi state line. It's now a little more broad, a little wider, so it's not as strong at the surface. But if that back half speeds up slightly, that'll be right over the Florence area, north of Florence, where that could, again, potentially come together with some rotation and some spin. And that's the area we're watching out for the potential for a tornado touchdown. Ahead of this, we've got some gusts up to 50, possibly 60 miles per hour. That's why we've got this severe thunderstorm warning, which is in effect until 7 o'clock. Again, that tornado watch includes all of the shoals, and that does include Lawrence County until 1 o'clock this afternoon. It does not include the metro at this point, Limestone County, as well as Madison or Morgan counties, but it does look like they're continuing that severe thunderstorm warning until 7 o'clock, with potential for winds up to 60 miles per hour. And again, 60-mile-per-hour winds, but also that threat that we could see a spin-up tornado. Right now, the worst of that would be near Florence, just to the west of Florence, near the Colbert as well as Lauderdale County line. So if you're in that area between Cherokee and Florence, you need to get to your shelter right now, get away from any windows at this moment. And as that races east, you can see the timeline on that. We do have a little bit of, well, actually it's gone now. That rotation we were seeing earlier towards Cherokee, east of Cherokee, is not nearly as strong, which is good news. And as Brad was mentioning, a little higher in the atmosphere, we're seeing some stronger winds towards Florence, Muscle Shoals, and Leeton, likely 40 to 50 miles per hour at the surface right now, but a little stronger as you get upper into the atmosphere because of what we call a low-level jet. You see two different defined lines here, though, that I want to highlight here on velocity. This is where the front of those lines are regarding the strongest winds. From Cherokee all the way to Collinwood in Middle Tennessee, and from Phil Campbell just to the west of Hatton and Town Creek right there. So what you're seeing is two different lines right there, and the break in between is generally where we see the tornadoes occur, and that's what we saw earlier towards Red Bay. And also a few areas that look a little notchy, but not too great when it comes to velocity at this point. So nothing to worry about at the moment, but that's the area to look out for within the next 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't see a big tornado threat for the areas from Florence to the south. As we go over to our First Alert Live Doppler radar, I'm going to go ahead and show you that. We'll kind of flip back and forth from the live Doppler radar. This is in the fast track, which is actually the Columbus Air Force Base NEXRAD. We're going to talk about this in just a second. Plus, we're going to talk about the velocity inside of these storms. But what we're seeing here is a very broad split now. If this split was only about 5 miles, we'd be a lot more concerned, especially with the weather coming into Florence. Just some heavy rain. I think the highest wind gusts may actually be over here in the city of Florence.
It's a 20-mile split right now.
20-mile split right now. All right, who do we got? Let's go to Levi Harvey now, who's out in the shoals. Levi?
Turn it on with 43.
Yeah, Levi, just talk over me when you
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not really getting good signal right now, but I can tell you what I see right now. We're in Muscle Shoals, headed towards Russellville, and right now, as we make our way through, the wind is picking up, the rain is picking up a lot. Visibility is not clear, so if you're out here, you really need to pay attention and slow down. There's a lot of cars that are actually out right now, but you can see that they are slowing down because it's really hard and difficult to see right now. I did speak with the EMA director shortly, who tell me that nothing major has hit the ground yet. So it's just a lot of leaves and debris that's being picked up because the wind is picking up a lot. When I was outside also, I'm a pretty big guy, so I was surprised at how the wind was just really just hitting me. But that's all I can tell you right now.
Well, Levi, that wind gets higher the taller you are, the higher you up above.